I think that my girlfriend is only with me because she can't be with her best friend. Should I just end the relationship? We have a 29 male OP, 26 female girlfriend, 26 male best friend, and we also have a new update. Originally posted in r/relationship advice. Original post November 8th, 2023. I've been with my girlfriend Jordan for a little over 2 years. We live together and we have 2 cats. Up until this weekend, I genuinely thought everything was perfect in our relationship, which I know is what everyone says in these posts, but I really was thinking that I was going to ask her to marry me sometime in the next year. We don't ever get into arguments. Jordan is very sweet and easygoing, and normally we just mesh well on everything. Honestly, if everything in our relationship hadn't been so good up until now, I probably would have just broken up with her this weekend. But because things have truly been so perfect, I'm not sure if maybe I'm jumping to the wrong conclusion about what to do because my feelings got hurt. The other person who's important in this story is Jordan's friend, Mark. She's known Mark for their whole lives because they both grew up in the same small religious community. Jordan isn't part of the religion anymore. She decided to leave the church when she was, I think, 19 and moved to the state that we live in now. Mark is still in the religion and apparently takes it really seriously. I'm told he now works for the church back in Jordan's hometown. Putting money on it, chat, it has to be Mormonism. Only Mormonism is it really that important to kind of note that she decided to leave the church. Maybe Jehovah's Witness too, but I'm putting it on Mormonism. Also, as far as I know, Mark is the only person from the religious community that Jordan still talks to besides her parents, which I'm mentioning because I now think it could be a red flag. So on Saturday, I met Mark for the first time because he was in our city and Jordan wanted us all to have dinner together. At this point, I want to say, I will admit that when we were first dating and I found out that Jordan had a best friend who was a guy, I didn't really like it, especially because it seemed like they were on FaceTime with each other a lot. But since it was a childhood friend and they mostly didn't see each other in person, I just trusted Jordan that Mark was only a friend and didn't let it bother me, and eventually I got over it. So when we were going to dinner, I wasn't jealous or suspicious of Mark at all. If anything, I was somewhat excited to finally be meeting him since I've been hearing about him for 2 years. But then the way Jordan and Mark acted at dinner is what convinced me that there's something going on there other than just being best friends. I honestly don't even know how to describe it, except to say that I've never seen 2 people act more obviously like they were in love with each other. They literally would not stop touching each other. They were constantly touching each other's arms and shoulders, and at some points, they were actually even holding hands. They completely left me out of the conversation and were laughing about inside jokes, and every time they'd laugh, they'd just do this thing where they put their foreheads together, or that was when they'd be holding hands. And then, also, they were just looking at each other in a way that I didn't feel comfortable with at all. It was honestly even worse than the touching. It just wasn't how anyone would look at somebody they're supposedly just friends with. I'm 100% sure that every stranger looking at our table thought that Jordan and Mark were the couple and that I was her brother or something. I felt like a third wheel the whole time, and Jordan didn't even notice how awkward she was making it for me because she was way too focused on Mark and all the attention she was getting from him. And that's really not like Jordan at all. Usually she's a lot more considerate and would notice immediately if I wasn't having a good time or if she was accidentally being rude and excluding someone at the table. So it was genuinely really jarring to be sitting there with her and Mark and basically feeling like I didn't know my girlfriend at all. It was like he turned her into a completely different person who didn't even care that I was alive. So finally, at one point when Jordan got up to go to the bathroom, I just said to Mark, "So are you into my girl or what's going on here?" Mark replies, "Nothing's going on at all. That ship sailed a long time ago." OP responded to that saying, "What does that mean? Did you guys date at some point?" Mark replies, "No, we never did. And then when she left the church, we both knew it meant that we were never going to. And we've accepted being in each other's lives as friends. There's nothing else going on at all." OP responded, "That makes it sound like the only reason you're not together is because she left the church," to which Mark shrugged at. OP then said, "Well, what if she came back to the church? Would you marry her?" Mark replies to that, "Oh, she's not going to do that. You might as well ask what would happen if a bicycle had 6 tires." And so then when Jordan came back to the table, Mark said to her, OP wants to know if we'd be married if you weren't a godless heathen. Jordan then replied to that saying, why? Did you two call your mom while I was gone? And then she and Mark both just laughed about it and changed the subject. Yeah, this is so fucking weird, chat. That whole interaction is just screaming red flags. I mean, if this shit wasn't already, him confronting it and it going like this is just red flag city. The capital of red flag, dare I say. So because of dinner and that conversation and everything else that I've written about in this post, I really feel like Jordan and Mark are in love with each other and not just best friends like they say. And the only reason they aren't together is because they can't compromise about their religion. I think Jordan thinks that because she's okay with that decision, she expects me to be okay with being her second choice. And in the meantime, she's actually secretly waiting to be with Mark. So that makes me think that I should probably obviously just have self-respect and break up with her because I shouldn't be in a relationship with someone who would rather be with someone else. But then the problem for me is that our relationship has been so perfect. And Jordan has always treated me so well except for this one night. The only time she's ever acted like this was on the one occasion that Mark was around in person. Normally, even when she's talking to him all the time, she's never made me feel this way. So on the one hand, I'm wondering if maybe it doesn't matter what Jordan's feelings are for Mark, as long as he isn't going to be around, it doesn't actually seem to affect our relationship. So maybe I just need to cool off and go back to trusting her that they are indeed only friends, even if it seems to be true that they have complicated feelings for each other. Or should I just end things? Y'all, I'm pro end things. I think this is fucking weird. I do think it's a self-respect thing. I think it's disrespectful to yourself to stick with somebody who clearly would choose someone else over you. Also, it's just disrespectful to act like this in front of your partner, to still have somebody in your life that you clearly have feelings for. Like, dude, do you really want to stay with her and potentially marry her, but still always be thinking in the back of my head like, oh, if this dude Mark just one day decides, I'm gonna leave the church. Or your wife for some reason goes, you know what? I'm gonna join the church again. Like, do you really want to go through life being like, well, is she gonna fucking leave me for this Mark guy? Don't get me wrong, that sucks that up until this point your relationship has been great, but I would argue that your relationship is nowhere near perfect if she is acting like this with another guy. Break up immediately. Cut that shit off. You do not need that in your life. There's no scenario in my head after seeing this that you can continue this relationship without this bleeding into the relationship. Beans is working hard today. Yeah, look at him. Look at him working so fucking hard, chat. Bro is just the hardest worker that ever worked. He's so silly. Oh shit, I totally did forget to turn off the music. Damn it. Thank you guys. This might be a hot take, but I do think the boyfriend is overreacting. It seems like she has a trauma bonded friendship with him. When they said that ship has sailed, it feels like that meant that they assumed they'd end up together because their parents pressured it, but it just wasn't going to happen. I see what you're saying, Sarah, but just no. I don't agree with this because of the way that they're acting at dinner. You should never be holding hands with another man who you clearly had feelings for previously. Like, I want y'all to think about that. If your partner is holding hands with another girl at a dinner with you and making you, their partner, feel like the third wheel, that is not okay at all. I also think, chat, I'll fucking say it, if the genders were reversed here, we would be so much more mad. Like, I don't even think anyone would have said what Sarah said. And Sarah, I'm not blaming you, by the way. I'm not blaming you at all. I'm just saying in general, everybody has a little bit of gender bias. It's more about just like having your brain corrected. I genuinely believe, chat, we would be so much harder on this person if Jordan was a guy and Mark was a girl. Like, we would totally think of this differently. Sarah, you might be right. Either way, I think that type of behavior is extremely unacceptable in front of your partner or not. You should not be holding hands with another man. Like, that's actually kind of crazy to me. I think that's probably the most disrespectful part too, is it's like, it's one thing if you're friends with someone who you previously had feelings with, but it's another thing if your partner feels the way that OP is feeling. Like, the way that OP is feeling is not okay. I think that's the root of it, and I think that his feelings are extremely valid. So you're saying sterilize the girlfriend? I think the girlfriend is just incredibly unself-aware. Like, I think people do this a lot, where they go out and they like get together with somebody even though they're not over somebody else prior because they haven't done the healing. They just think like, oh, if I replace the hole, then I'll be good. I'll be fine. But clearly, like, the hole is not filled for this person. Like, I do think you need to be with somebody who, like any previous ex, ex that you can think of, you can be like, oh, dude, like, fuck that person. I choose this person over them every single time. I also think it's a little bit of a respect thing to be like, hey, I'm not going to put my partner in an uncomfortable situation that involves my ex. Like, I totally understand being friends with exes and having them kinda in your lives, but in your life, the way that Mark is in Jordan's life is completely inappropriate. I don't think anybody would be okay with this. And if you are, you need to reevaluate. As a woman, I wouldn't care about this in the scenario if this was my partner, and wouldn't consider breaking up without a private conversation. It feels like the girlfriend really wasn't aware that it could be read into like that because she doesn't even view that friend as an option. You could be right. I think everybody should be mad at this scenario. Like, if anything, that's just an even bigger ick to me. If the girlfriend really wasn't aware that it could be read into it like that, you're holding hands with him and pressing your forehead against his forehead. I think you feel jealous for good reasons sometimes. And this seems like a very good reason. Like, sometimes you're just jealous because like your partner is going somewhere and there's another woman there that maybe is like shown interest in him, but like it really comes down to being like, okay, I trust my partner. He won't do anything. He's good, whatever. But if like they were holding hands and touching foreheads, I think that jealousy is totally merited and you should do something about it. I'm more no assholes here on this one. Yeah, I don't agree with that. I think the girlfriend is such an asshole. Like I said, y'all, I feel like we would be castrating Jordan if it was a man. I don't know. It kind of surprises me that some of you guys are like, oh, no a-holes, or like, I could see how holding someone else's hand is okay. I don't. Maybe that just speaks for like what I want in a relationship. Like, I find that extremely uncomfortable and I would be incredibly upset at something like that. I just don't think that's at all ever appropriate. Update November 10th, 2023, about 2 days after the original post. I talked to Jordan on Wednesday night. When we talked, I decided to take the main piece of advice that I got from everyone and start by telling Jordan that my feelings were hurt by the way she treated me at dinner with Mark, and then see how the conversation went from there. It turned into a very long talk, so I don't want to try to remember exact quotes and get them wrong, but here are the important things. I repeated to Jordan some of what I wrote in that post and said that I felt excluded by her and Mark, especially because they were being overly touchy-feely with each other to the point where it made me uncomfortable. Jordan seemed surprised, like she didn't even notice that she and Mark were touching each other that much. But then she thought about it and said that I was right and apologized. She said that Mark is always really touchy with everybody and not just her. I asked, and so she didn't even think about it, but that she wished I would have said something at the time because she didn't realize they were being that obnoxious. I said that was part of what bothered me because I thought that normally she would have noticed something like that, but she was acting so different around Mark and not paying any attention to anything else, including how I was feeling, that it honestly just made me question which one of us she cared about more, or if she cared about him as more than just a friend. Jordan apologized more and said that she could understand why it would look that way to me, but that she loves me and cares more about me than anyone else in the world, and that she didn't mean to act like that or make me feel that way. She said that she was trying to not make Mark feel like a third wheel because of being a single guy out with a couple, but obviously it backfired and just made me feel like the third wheel instead, which wasn't what she wanted to do either. After that, Jordan explained a lot to me about her history with Mark, and basically as she explained it, she said that she fully admits she cares about him as more than just a normal friend, but she says that it's not in a romantic way. She said that's why she always specifically refers to him as her best friend, and not just as her friend, and said that she would use the phrase, "he's like my brother," if it weren't for the fact that she once had an actual brother, RIP. So she won't use that phrasing for anyone else. Okay, sure, but that's not how you act with a brother. I've like held my siblings' hands as like a joke as an adult or something like that, or just as like a quick little like reassuring squeeze of the hand. I could not imagine like holding my sibling's hand, honestly, longer than 10 to 15 seconds, but I'll say 30 to be safe, because maybe there's some siblings out there that do. Touching foreheads together while they're laughing? Fucking never. Never. And I am close as shit with my siblings, y'all. Hug? Sure. Everybody loves a nice little reassuring hug. Even like, when they're tired, just like putting their head on your shoulder, just so they can rest for a second. That's fine to me. Foreheads together, lips inches apart from each other? Fuck no. Absolutely not. Just big no to that. Maybe she does really feel like he's just a brother, but either she doesn't know the boundaries around having a brother or she's lying. According to Jordan, the main thing that happened to make her and Mark so close was that when she was 17, she tried to K-word herself, and that was actually when everyone else in the community stopped talking to her, and Mark was the only person who didn't. For the next couple of years until she moved, he was literally her only friend, and she said that he checked on her every single day to make sure she stayed alive, which is also when they got into the habit of talking on the phone so much. And also apparently during this time, Mark's parents thought that they were dating and made a big deal about how they shouldn't be, and that's why she made that remark during dinner. Apparently calling Jordan a godless heathen is something that Mark's mom said. If you're like so against the things that your religion is forcing your parents to say and do, like why are you still in that religion? But might just be me. I did tell Jordan that Mark basically said to me that he thought the two of them would be married if she had stayed in the church, and I asked her if she thinks that maybe Mark is in love with her, even if she doesn't feel the same way. She said definitely not, and I don't think she was being dishonest. I really don't agree with her, but I think she genuinely believes that Mark isn't into her in any way apart from the friendship. Her opinion of the situation is that she also thinks she and Mark would eventually have gotten married if she had never left the church or moved, but from her perspective, it would have been more because of peer pressure than anything else, and she doesn't think it would necessarily have been a good thing. She thinks Mark was just being honest about that, and that possibly from his perspective, he thinks he and Jordan would have made a good couple. But he's probably thinking that because he's just assuming that in that scenario, she'd be the perfect church wife. So there's no reason why they wouldn't be a good couple. But then the big thing that happened at the end of the conversation is that Jordan told me that Mark is coming back through our city on his way home from this trip. And so she was going to invite him to hang out with the two of us again. But she said that if I'm going to be uncomfortable with him around, then she won't ask him. A lot of people were saying that if she didn't offer to cut contact with him or to cut down on contact with him, it meant that she valued him over me. So the fact that she brought up on her own that she wouldn't invite him to dinner with us again because I didn't like it seemed like a really good sign to me. Based on everything else that she said, I do understand why she didn't offer to totally stop being friends with him, and I wouldn't expect her to after what she told me about what happened when she was a teenager. So now I'm deciding to take Jordan's word for it that although she and Mark are weirdly close, it's for the reasons that she explained to me and not because she's in love with him. I think the fact that she was immediately apologetic instead of defensive was good, and the way she explained everything did make sense to me. I don't necessarily trust Mark, but I do think I can trust Jordan. But I am going to watch and see if it seems like she's still talking to him as much as she used to, or if anything changes or sounds different. I'm not going to be controlling and tell her that she can't talk to him or that she has to talk to him less, but I want to see if me talking to her about all of this causes her to act any differently at all. I'm kind of thinking she might realize on her own that the way Mark acts towards her actually does seem like he likes her as more than a friend now that I've brought it up. But I don't know. It could be that things just go back to exactly the way they were before, and I don't know if anything has actually changed until the next time Mark is around in person, but I don't think that's something I should keep worrying about before it happens. Aside from the whole brother thing that I brought up, I actually think Jordan reacted to this pretty well. I mean, like he said, her suggesting that there be less contact without OP recommending it, kind of a green flag. I think not only keeping an eye on how this conversation changes Jordan's behavior around talking to Mark, but also if she starts implementing boundaries. Because like for me, chat, the biggest things, the touching, the holding hands, the forehead touching. If they stop doing that and they tone down their talking, I actually think OP might be cooking. And this is coming from the guy that was like, you should just fucking break it off. I think that's what I'm gonna go with. I mean, if he's not gonna break up with her, I think he just needs to keep a close eye on it. But I will say her reaction was pretty good. I don't know. It's still weird. Like, I still think it's a little low-key disrespectful that she wasn't able to see how inappropriate her behavior was with Mark. How old are they? 26? I feel like at 26, you should know not to fucking touch foreheads with somebody like that in front of your partner. I don't know. I think he could have cut his losses and it would have been fine. Like, I have to admire him for like trying to keep the relationship going, but like to me this is like thin ice type beat, and I really do hope he explained the whole boundaries around the type of shit that they do together. It's just weird. It'd be more messed up if that stuff was happening when I wasn't around. At least if people are being that brazen, it's less likely they think they're doing something wrong. You're kind of right. I see your point, but I also just think it's like, how do you not see that that's wrong? Like, this would actually genuinely be an ick to me. Really? You didn't know that that was an inappropriate thing to do? At the age of 26? I don't know. There is a relevant comment here. Looks like they're asking the important questions. OP, did you acknowledge that the touching by her was inappropriate? I do not see how she could have not recognized how touchy they were and her lack of physical touch with you. Like many others have said, I am not sure Jordan was being completely honest with you. Did you ask her how she would have felt in a reverse situation? If the three of you meet again, you might want to think about excusing yourself to go to the bathroom or something during the meal and instead hide and film their interaction while you are gone. See if Jordan changes how she interacts with you not there. I say to capture it on your phone because then you have it to show her if you break up. If she interacts appropriately while you are gone, then she may have gotten the message. She should also start limiting her interactions with him, phone/text, because that relationship is not healthy and no significant other should have to deal with that if you two get married. It needs to be dealt with now. This is hard, y'all, because it low-key feels a little slimy to like set up this trap and record it, but also I kind of agree a little bit. Like, I do think if OP stays in this relationship, he needs to really know that Jordan chooses him over Mark. Okay, OP did reply to it saying, she did acknowledge that all the touching was inappropriate, yes. When she actually thought back on how much they were doing it and how over the top it was, she was embarrassed and realized that she shouldn't have started acting like that just because Mark makes it seem normal. I didn't ask her how she'd feel in a reverse situation because it seemed like she got it immediately as soon as I told her how it made me feel. If the three of us are ever together again, I'll definitely be watching everything, but I don't think there's a chance of that happening for a while. All right, and then we got another fucking update, so let's do it. Update 2, January 24th, 2024, nearly 3 months later. The situation seems pretty resolved now after Mike and Jordan had an argument over everything and are no longer friends. Okay, I think they meant Mark, not Mike up here. What happened was that after Jordan told Mark we weren't available to hang out when he came back through our city, he blamed me, saying that he could tell Jordan was only saying no to hanging out because I had a problem with him. Jordan admitted that this was part of the reason and told Mark that she wanted a bit of space from him because she was trying to be respectful of our relationship. Mark got really offended and kept asking Jordan to explain why him being around was disrespectful to our relationship and kept pretending not to understand her answers. And then eventually during the conversation, he started trying to guilt Jordan into making time for him and told her that she's become a worse person over the years because the Jordan he knew would never blow him off. That upset Jordan a lot because she took it as Mark saying that she was a bad person since she left the church, and she started crying and she ended up hanging up on him. Yes, there is the cult follower activity right there. Jordan and I talked a lot afterwards. I told her that I thought Mark was toxic because anyone else would have been understanding of what she said. Jordan said that a lot of what he said during the conversation reminded her of being in the church. She said that she couldn't explain it except that it was his attitude when he tried to argue with her, but that it made her not really want to talk to him even outside of everything to do with our relationship. Mark texted Jordan the day after asking if she really wasn't going to come see him and if she was going to pick some boyfriend over her only friend after he's been there for her through everything. Jordan texted Mark back explaining her point again and saying that their friendship couldn't be the same anymore as it used to be now that she was with someone, and that he should understand that. Mark texted Jordan that he couldn't believe she'd treat her best friend like that. Jordan tried to text Mark saying that a friend wouldn't be guilt tripping her, but it turned out that he had blocked her number. After that, Jordan was feeling like she'd done something wrong and was too mean to Mark, but she and I talked about it again and she realized that she was right to not want to be friends with Mark if he's going to treat her like she owes him loyalty. Jordan then blocked him back, including on all her socials, so that if he later changes his mind and tries to apologize, she can ignore him. A couple weeks went by, and while I'll admit I was pretty happy about not hearing from Mark, Jordan was really bummed about how everything ended. She said that although she saw now that Mark isn't a good person to have in her life because of his reaction to her trying to set a boundary, she still felt sad and abandoned. And it was bringing back a lot of the same feelings as when she was a teenager, and her other church friends all turned their backs on her. So at this point, I asked her if she's ever thought about going to therapy for religious trauma, and she said she's gone for a few months when she first left the church, but the therapist wasn't really helpful. I suggested that maybe it would be a good idea to try again with a better therapist because it sounds like all this stuff still bothers her a lot. And Jordan agreed with me and decided to make an appointment. She's had a couple of therapy sessions that she says so far are good, but I don't really ask her for any details on what they talk about, so I can't really update on that part of the situation. I don't know, maybe I'm just being overly harsh on Jordan. I feel like none of the right decisions were made directly by her that influenced the path of this story, which I get it. Sometimes that's how people have to make changes, but it's not ideal. Like, it's not ideal that you don't know that you shouldn't be holding hands and than touching another guy who you probably had feelings for back in the day in front of your partner. It's not ideal that, yeah, now Mark isn't in her life, but it's because Mark made that happen, not necessarily that Jordan made that happen. You guys know what I'm saying? Like, I'm glad it ended up okay and they're still together and it's kind of question mark happily ever after a little bit, but I don't know. I don't really feel like Jordan took initiative on anything, but glad she's in therapy. Glad she at least understood what OP was saying and was willing to follow through on it. Got to give her credit there. Yeah, like I said, I might be being too critical on her, but just more of an observation. I feel like it's harsh to blame her for any of it. I will once again say, I think we're only saying that because she's a woman here. I feel like if this was a man, we would be very hard on them. I think we do need to point out that she made mistakes here and that she didn't go about fixing those mistakes well. Was she very good about having the conversation with OP and seeing his side? Absolutely. Like, thumbs up there. But I think there is a little bit of harshness that we need to give. I just think if you're 26 years old, you should know not to physically touch another person in an intimate way other than your partner. I think that should be gold standard. I like the correction, Curly Fry. It's okay to say she made mistakes, but she addressed everything as well as I think she could. Absolutely. She was very receptive. I was kind of curious why Jordan didn't explain her history with Mark earlier to OP. Like, this is something that, like, I feel like every person I've dated has told me earlier than 2 years into the relationship. Guys, I'm willing to admit, maybe I'm overly harsh on Jordan. Maybe it's because I'm a guy. Like, maybe the gender bias is there where I'm like, I don't think anybody should put up with that, but I'm still glad that it worked out. Like, it genuinely does feel like Jordan wants this to work with OP and that she loves him. It almost sounds like Jordan just didn't really realize the boundaries that she was crossing in terms of like how you should operate in a relationship.